My sister-in-law called the police to destroy my career over an argument, but when she started killing my sick mother with her kids, I struck back, and her entire life collapsed. I'm 34 years old. I've been working with children for over a decade. And if you had told me 4 years ago that I was going to end up calling the police on my own sister-in-law for child abandonment, I would have told you that you were crazy. But here we are. And honestly, the only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. This story is long and complicated, but I need to tell it because there are still people in my family who think I'm the villain, when the reality is that Lauren almost killed my mother with her selfishness. Let's start from the beginning, like March 2020. You know, when the world was going to hell with the pandemic, and we were all trying to figure out how to manage work, kids, and basically everything. Lauren is my brother, Kevin's wife, and at that point, they had been married for like 6 years. They had 2 small kids, and she worked part-time in an office doing something with accounting or finance. I never really understood exactly what. I also had 2 children, a bit older than hers, and I worked from home most of the time because, well, my job with children gave me that flexibility, although I still had to go to the office sometimes or make home visits depending on the case. The thing is that Lauren proposed this mutual childcare arrangement to me. Like, you watch my kids on the days I work, and I watch yours when you have to go out. It sounded perfect, right? We saved money on daycare, the cousins could spend time together, everyone won. And the truth is, for almost 3 years, it worked pretty well. I mean, we had our occasional clashes because Lauren was always kind of intense and controlling about some things, but nothing serious. Just the typical differences about food routines or screen time, things we could resolve by talking. My mom lived like 20 minutes from my house. She was one of those mothers who always want to help. You know, the type of person who, if you mention your head hurts, she's already at your door with soup and home remedies. She's like 62 years old now. She's always been healthy in general, active. One of those ladies who go to the gym 3 times a week and cook elaborate meals on Sundays. Kevin and Lauren lived a bit farther, like 30 minutes from my house, in one of those new developments with all the houses looking the same and perfectly cut lawns. Kevin works in sales. Makes good money, I guess. Although Lauren was always complaining that they needed more money, more space, more of everything, basically. So, fast forward to like a year and a half ago. I don't remember the exact date, but it was summer. It was hot as hell, and we were all in a bad mood because of the weather. Lauren and I had a stupid argument about something completely insignificant. I think it was because one of my kids said something kind of rude to one of hers, and she felt I didn't scold him enough, or something like that. It was silly. The type of thing that normally gets resolved with a quick apology, and that's it. But Lauren is one of those who holds grudges. So she was kind of cold with me for a few days, but we continued with the childcare arrangement because, well, we both needed it. What happened next was literally one of the most surreal things in my life. It was a Tuesday. I have the date engraved because it was the day everything went to hell. I had to go to the office that morning, an important meeting I couldn't cancel. So I got the kids ready like always, packed their lunches, made sure they had everything they needed, and took them to Lauren's house around 8:30 inches the morning. Now, here's the thing. Lauren had sent me a text message at like 7:45 saying she wasn't going to be able to watch the kids that day because she wasn't feeling well or something. But I didn't see the message because I was in the shower and then running around like crazy trying to leave the house on time. I got to her house, knocked on the door, waited like a minute. The kids were there with me on the porch, and since nobody opened, I assumed Lauren was in the bathroom or with hers in the back of the house. So I did what I had literally done hundreds of times in the last 3 years. I opened the door. They never locked it when they knew I was coming. Left the kids inside, told them to go find Aunt Lauren, and ran off to my meeting. Total normalcy, or so I thought. I get to my meeting. I'm there for like an hour and a half, and when I come out and check my phone, I have like 15 missed calls from Kevin, 10 messages from Lauren that are basically insults and threats, and 3 messages from an unknown number. My heart dropped to the floor. Obviously, I thought something horrible had happened to the kids, so I called Kevin immediately and he tells me, with a voice I had never heard from him, "You need to come to my house right now." Lauren called the police. And I'm literally like, "What? The police? Why?" And he just repeats that I should come immediately. I drive there basically breaking every speed limit, my heart beating a mile a minute, 1,000 horrible scenarios going through my head. And when I get to Lauren's house, there are 2 patrol cars parked outside with their lights on. My 4 kids, mine and hers, are sitting on the porch crying with a police officer trying to calm them down, and Lauren is standing there with her arms crossed talking to another officer. Seriously, it was like a nightmare. Like those things you see on TV but never think will happen to you. I get out of the car and run towards my kids, and the officer stops me and says, "Are you Rachel?" And I'm like, "Yes. What's happening?" And Lauren, I swear I'll never forget her face at that moment, looks at me and says with this whole victimized voice, "You abandoned them. If you left your kids abandoned at my house, when I clearly told you I couldn't watch them today." And I just stood there like, "What are you talking about?" Then the officer asks me if I received any message from her that morning, telling me I couldn't watch the kids. And I check my phone, and there it is, the 7:45 message I never saw. I tried to explain to the officer that this was a misunderstanding, that we had a 3-year arrangement, that I always dropped the kids off this way, that I didn't see the message because I was getting ready to leave. But Lauren kept interrupting me, saying that I had abandoned my children, that she could call child services, that I wasn't fit to be a mother. The kids were hysterical on the porch, crying and asking what was happening, and I just wanted to grab them and get out of there. But the officer asked me to wait while he talked to his partner. What Lauren was trying to do, and I understood this later when I processed everything more calmly, was basically destroy my career. I work with children, remember? If they had charged me with child abandonment or neglect, I would have lost my license, my job, everything. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she did it because she was still angry about that stupid argument from days before. Who does that? Seriously. Who calls the police on their own sister-in-law over a communication misunderstanding that put the kids in zero real danger? They were completely safe inside the house. They weren't alone on the street or anything remotely dangerous, but she decided to turn it into a scandal to hurt me. The officers talked to each other for like 10 minutes that felt like hours, checked the messages on my phone, asked Lauren if there was any previous history of problems with the childcare, talked to the kids to make sure they were okay, and eventually determined it was simply a communication problem and there was no basis for any charges. They told me that in the future I should make sure to always confirm before leaving the kids, which, obviously. But they also told me that calling the police over this was excessive and that family problems like this should be resolved between the parties involved. I grabbed my kids, put them in the car, and drove back home in complete silence because I didn't even know what to say. My kids were asking me why there were police, why Aunt Lauren was angry, if they had done something wrong, and I was trying to explain to them that it was a misunderstanding between adults, but they were like 7 and 9 years old. They were scared and confused. That night, after they finally fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen and cried from pure rage because I couldn't believe that someone from my own family had tried to screw me over like that. The next day, I blocked Lauren from everywhere. Phone, social media, everything. I sent her one final message before blocking her, telling her that the childcare arrangement had ended permanently, that I never wanted to talk to her again, and to keep her toxicity away from me and my kids. I didn't apologize for not seeing her message, because honestly, a normal person would have handled that 1,000 different ways before calling the police. She could have called me. She could have called my mom. She could literally have waited for me to arrive and talked about it like adults. Kevin called me that night and started with the usual speech. You know, that whole thing about how we're family and we have to resolve our differences and Lauren is very sorry, which was an obvious lie because she never regrets anything. I told him I didn't care, that what his wife did crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, and that I wasn't going to expose my kids to someone so unstable and malicious. He tried to defend Lauren, saying she was stressed and didn't think clearly. And I'm like, Kevin. She called the police. She didn't break a plate. There are levels of stress that don't justify certain actions. Then Kevin drops on me that Lauren had to quit her job because without my help, they don't have anyone to watch the kids and they can't afford full-time daycare with just his salary. And I, in the coldest way possible, tell him that's his problem, not mine, that Lauren should have thought about those consequences before trying to destroy my career. I hung up the phone, and that was basically the last real conversation I had with my brother for months. Like 2 weeks passed, and my mom calls me to tell me that Lauren asked her for help with the kids. Turns out that after quitting, Lauren started taking her kids to my mom's house 3 days a week, like she'd drop them off at 8 inches the morning and pick them up at 6 inches the evening. My mom, being who she is, didn't know how to say no because she didn't want the kids to suffer because of problems between the adults, so she agreed. even though I warned her that Lauren was going to take advantage of her kindness. At first, it seemed manageable. My mom said she was fine, that she enjoyed spending time with her grandchildren, but I could notice she was more tired, more stressed. Taking care of two small kids aged 3 and 5, 3 full days a week isn't easy for anyone, much less for a 6'2" woman with blood pressure that was already kind of high. I suggested she set boundaries with Lauren, but she insisted she could handle it and didn't want to cause more problems in the family. Like 2 months after this arrangement started, my mom had a routine appointment with her doctor, and her blood pressure was dangerously high, like numbers that the doctor said could cause her a stroke if they weren't controlled immediately. They put her on stronger medication and told her she needed to reduce stress in her life. When I asked my mom what was causing so much stress, she started crying and admitted that taking care of Lauren's kids was exhausting, that Lauren frequently arrived late to pick them up, that sometimes she'd drop them off without enough food or diapers, and that basically she treated my mom like a free daycare service without any respect or consideration. I went to my mom's house the next day, when I knew Lauren was going to be there, dropping off the kids, and I confronted her at the entrance. I told her exactly what I thought, that she was a selfish manipulator who didn't care who she hurt as long as she got what she wanted, that she was slowly killing my mom with her parasitic behavior, and that she needed to find other childcare options immediately. Lauren told me to mind my own business, that her relationship with my mom didn't concern me, and that I was just jealous because my mom preferred spending time with her kids than with mine, which was ridiculous and didn't even make sense. My mom tried to calm the situation, saying everything was fine, but I could see how pale and tired she looked, so I told Lauren directly, "If my mom ends up in the hospital because of you, I'm going to hold you responsible." Lauren laughed in my face, grabbed her kids, and left. That was the first time I genuinely felt I could hit someone in my family. My hands were shaking from the rage I felt. 2 weeks later, my mom ended up in the hospital. I was at work when Kevin called me to tell me they had taken her in an ambulance because she collapsed at her house while Lauren's kids were there. I ran out of work, drove to the hospital, and when I arrived, my mom was in a bed connected to monitors, with Kevin and Lauren in the room. The doctor explained to me that her blood pressure had reached emergency levels and that she had pre-stroke symptoms, that they were very lucky it wasn't something worse. I looked at Lauren and told her, "This is your fault. You're killing my mom because you're too selfish to figure out your own life." She started crying with that fake cry she does when she wants to play victim, saying she didn't know my mom was so stressed, that my mom never told her anything, that she was just trying to do what was best for her kids. And I'm like, "You're such a liar. Mom has told you 1,000 times she's tired and you just ignore it because it's convenient for you." The doctor literally had to ask us to leave the room because we were upsetting my mom, so Kevin and I went outside while Lauren stayed inside. Kevin told me I was being unfair to Lauren, that she was doing the best she could in a difficult situation, and that I needed to forgive and move on. I reminded him that Lauren created her own difficult situation when she decided to call the police on me for absolutely nothing, and that none of us would be in this position if she were a normal person capable of communicating like an adult. My mom was in the hospital 3 days, and when they discharged her, the doctor was super clear. No stress, no strenuous activity, medication religiously, and close follow-up. I told my mom she had to tell Lauren she couldn't continue watching the kids, that literally her life depended on it. My mom agreed, although I could see she felt guilty, like she was abandoning her grandchildren, which was exactly the reaction Lauren wanted to provoke with her manipulation. My mom called Lauren that night and explained the situation, that the doctor had been clear about avoiding stress and that she couldn't continue watching the kids regularly. Lauren cried on the phone, begged, tried to negotiate fewer days, but my mom stood firm for the first time in her life, which made me proud, honestly. Lauren said she understood and that she would look for other options. 2 days later, Lauren showed up at my mom's house with the kids at 8 inches the morning like nothing happened. My mom called her confused, asking what she was doing. And Lauren said it was just for that day, that she had an emergency, that she didn't have anyone else. My mom, because she's too good, let them stay. This became a pattern. Lauren kept showing up with the kids just for today or just this once, and my mom didn't know how to tell her no without feeling like a horrible grandmother. The second time my mom went to the hospital, like a month later, the doctor basically gave her an ultimatum. Either you eliminate the stress from your life or I'm going to have a stroke, and I won't be able to help you if that happens. I was there when the doctor said this, and I promised I was going to fix the Lauren situation once and for all. My mom tried to protest, saying she didn't want more family conflict. But I told her I'd rather have family conflict than a dead mother. I went directly back to my mom's house, where Lauren was picking up the kids, and I told her in front of Kevin that if she left her kids with my mom again, I was going to call the police for child abandonment exactly like she had done to me. That my mom had clearly told her she couldn't watch them, that the doctor had explicitly forbidden that level of stress, and that continuing to leave the kids there knowing my mom couldn't care for them appropriately constituted abandonment. Lauren called me crazy, psychopath, a bunch of insults, but I could see in her eyes that she knew I was serious. I told her she had 1 week to find alternative care, and that after that, any kids she left at my mom's house would result in a call to the police and child services. Kevin tried to intervene, saying I was overreacting. That family is supposed to help each other, and I yelled at him. Where was that concept of family when your wife tried to destroy my career? When she almost killed our mother with her selfishness? You only want to talk about family when it's convenient for you. Lauren, of course, didn't find alternative care, or more likely didn't even try because she assumed I was bluffing. Exactly 9 days later, she showed up at my mom's house with the kids. I had been monitoring because I knew she would, so I waited 30 minutes, called my mom to confirm Lauren had left, and called the police to report child abandonment. I explained the whole situation, my mom's medical history, the doctor's instructions, the fact that Lauren had been informed multiple times that my mom couldn't watch the kids, and that she had left them there anyway. The officers went to my mom's house, verified the situation, talked to my mom about her medical condition and the doctor's instructions, and tried to contact Lauren. Lauren didn't answer their calls for like 2 hours, and when she finally showed up, they gave her an official warning that leaving her kids with someone who can't care for them appropriately due to medical problems constitutes neglect, and that if it happened again, there would be legal consequences. Lauren sent me the most venomous messages I've ever received in my life after that, basically wishing me death and saying I was the worst person in the world, that I had traumatized her kids by having the police there, that I had destroyed her life out of revenge. I didn't even respond, just took screenshots of everything in case I needed proof of her behavior later. What happened next was almost comical if it wasn't so sad. Kevin started staying at my mom's house basically full-time, because according to him, he couldn't stand being at home with Lauren. They were fighting constantly about money, about childcare, about everything. My mom would tell me Kevin was sleeping on her couch 4 or 5 nights a week, and although part of me felt sorry for him, another part thought, this is what happens when you marry someone toxic and spend years making excuses for their behavior. Lauren's life basically fell apart over the course of like 6 months. No job, no free childcare, with her marriage destroyed, and with nobody in the family willing to help her after everything she had done. I heard through my mom that Lauren and Kevin were behind on their house payment, that they had sold one of their cars, that they were basically bankrupt. Part of me felt bad, especially for the kids who didn't deserve to be in the middle of all this, but most of me thought Lauren had dug her own grave with her horrible behavior. Like 6 months ago, Lauren and Kevin moved back in with Lauren's parents who live like 4 hours away. They packed up their whole life and left without properly saying goodbye to anyone, although honestly I don't know what they expected. It's not like they had many allies here after everything. My mom was sad to see her grandchildren go so far away, but she also admitted she felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders, and when she went to her next medical appointment, her blood pressure had dropped significantly. Today, I have absolutely no contact with Lauren, and Kevin only sends me occasional messages for birthdays or Christmas that I respond to with minimal courtesy. My mom talks to Kevin on the phone every couple of weeks and sees the kids like twice a year when they make the trip to visit her, but the relationship definitely isn't what it was before. My kids ask sometimes about their cousins and why they don't see them anymore, and I try to explain to them in an age-appropriate way that sometimes adults have disagreements that can't be resolved, but that doesn't mean we don't love all our family. My mom's health is so much better now. Her numbers are under control. She has more energy. She looks 10 years younger without all that stress. She tells me she feels guilty about not being able to see Lauren's grandkids more often. But I remind her that she almost died because of Lauren's selfishness, and that no amount of time with grandchildren is worth her life. I know there are people who probably think I was too harsh, that I should have been the bigger person and forgiven, that family is family and all that stuff. But here's the thing. There's a limit to what you should tolerate from someone just because they share your blood. Lauren tried to destroy my career out of spite, almost killed my mother out of convenience, and never once took responsibility for anything she did. People like that don't change. They just look for the next person to manipulate and use. Last week, Kevin sent me a message saying Lauren is asking if we could ever fix things, like maybe in a couple of years, when everything has calmed down. I left the message unread and didn't respond. Some doors close for good reasons, and not all relationships deserve to be saved. My mom is alive and healthy. My kids are fine, and I sleep peacefully at night knowing I did the right thing, even if it was the hard thing. And that, I guess, is enough for me.